When we think of serotonin, we almost instantly picture the brain's ultimate happy chemical. It's
Right.
kind of the biological equivalent of a sunny day.
Yeah, absolutely. The feel-good neurotransmitter.
Right, exactly. We just assume it's up there in our heads, regulating our mood, keeping us calm, and just making us feel good. But here is a shocking, completely counterintuitive fact to start your day.
Huh.
A staggering 90% of your body's serotonin isn't in your brain at all.
No, it's really not.
It is produced right down in your gut.
Honestly, it's one of the most massive biological blind spots we have in general health discussions right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spent decades focusing obsessively on the 10% in our heads.
While ignoring the rest.
Exactly. Completely ignoring the massive, industrial serotonin factory operating right there in our digestive tract.
And it gets so much more personal than just like anatomy trivia. I mean,
Right.
For everyone listening, have you ever felt like your metabolism is actively working against you?
Oh, yeah. So many people feel that.
Right. Like you are doing everything right. You're counting the macros, doing the cardio, but your body is it's hoarding fat no matter what you do.
It's incredibly frustrating.
It is. Well, the culprit might actually be the microscopic bugs in your belly hijacking your serotonin levels. Because think about it like this. If serotonin is the cool, inspiring CEO of mood up in the brain, it is the strict, hoarding middle manager of metabolism down in your gut.
I love that. That middle manager metaphor is incredibly apt because the systemic control that gut-derived serotonin exerts over our cellular energy storage is, well, it's profound and, frankly, a little dictatorial.
A little dictatorial, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the mission of today's deep dive. We are bridging the gap between cutting-edge microbiology and your daily life.
Right.
We are unpacking a massive, brand new 2025 review from journal Life Metabolism to show you exactly how this gut-derived serotonin controls your waistline. And, more importantly, how you can hack the system to take the wheel back.
Which is the best part. You can actually change this.
Okay, so let's unpack this. How exactly is our gut manufacturing all this serotonin in the first place? Do we just, absorb it directly from food?
Well, to understand the how, we really have to look at the raw materials. Our bodies cannot just make serotonin out of thin air. We have to build it from an essential amino acid called tryptophan.
Wait, tryptophan, like the stuff in Thanksgiving turkey that supposedly makes you fall asleep on the couch?
The very same, yeah.
Yeah.
You get it from dietary sources like poultry, eggs, oats, dairy, things like that.
Okay.
And once that tryptophan hits your gut, your body needs to convert it. It uses this highly specific, rate-limiting enzyme to transform that raw tryptophan into serotonin. And in the digestive tract, this enzyme is called TPH1.
Okay, so we eat the turkey, the tryptophan travels down to the gut, and this TPH1 enzyme acts like the assembly line machinery to turn it into serotonin.
Exactly.
So where is this machinery actually located?
So it's housed in spherulized cells lining the entire length of your digestive tract. They're called enterochromaffin cells, or EC cells for short.
EC cells, got it.
Yeah. Think of the EC cells as the physical factory buildings. They are responsible for churning out at least 90% of the serotonin in your body.
Wow.
But here is where the story gets really wild. The human body doesn't actually manage the factory floor.
What do you mean, who manages it?
Our gut microbiota. The trillions of bacteria living inside us are the ones actually holding the clipboards. They act as the master puppeteers of this entire production line.
Bugs are pulling the strings. I mean, the review points out some incredible mechanisms for how they actually do this. It's not just a passive relationship at all.
Oh, it's highly active.
There are specific strains of bacteria, like Corynebacterium and certain Escherichia coli, that literally manufacture their own tryptophan directly inside your gut.
Right, they're essentially smuggling raw materials right onto the factory floor to force production to stay high.
Exactly. And then other bacterial strains take a much more aggressive approach. Like, the review highlights microbes like Bifidobacterium and Akkermansia mucinifera. They don't just supply raw materials. They send chemical signals that actively stimulate our human EC cells to pump out more of that TPH1 assembly line enzyme.
They're forcefully upgrading the factory's production capacity.
It's crazy.
And what's really fascinating here is all of this massive serotonin production happening below the neck has absolutely no bearing on your mood.
None at all.
None. Peripheral serotonin, meaning the serotonin in your gut and circulating in your bloodstream. It cannot cross the blood-brain barrier.
So it's like a biological firewall.
Exactly like a firewall.
So if my gut is pumping out gallons of this happy chemical because of these specific bacteria, it doesn't just float up to my brain and make me euphoric.
Not a single drop of it. You essentially have two completely separate, isolated serotonin systems. And because they are isolated, they have evolved to perform completely different jobs.
Well, let's talk about those jobs, because the review makes it very clear they are polar opposites when it comes to your waistline.
They really are.
Let's look at the brain first. Central serotonin, that 10% up in your head, is essentially the ultimate fitness coach.
Right. Up in the brain, serotonin interacts with specific neural pathways, like the POMC neurons, to signal satiety. It essentially tells you, hey, we've had enough to eat, put the fork down.
Okay, so it stops you from overeating.
Exactly. But it also actively promotes energy expenditure. It sends signals down the nervous system to your brown adipose tissue to turn up the heat.
Just to clarify for anyone listening who might not know the difference between fat types, brown fat is like a biological furnace that burns calories to generate heat.
Yes.
Whereas white fat is the storage locker that hangs around our midsection. So the brain's serotonin is actively telling that brown fat furnace to burn calories, a process called thermogenesis.
Exactly right. Brain serotonin suppresses appetite and burns fat. It's great.
But then we look below the neck.
Right. When peripheral serotonin is pumped out by your gut factory and enters the bloodstream, it acts completely differently. The review describes it as almost a metabolic hibernation signal.
A hibernation signal.
Yeah.
Wow. So when this gut-derived serotonin hits the liver, what actually happens?
It binds to specific receptors, primarily the 5-HTR2A receptor. And when the liver receives this serotonin signal, it immediately shifts into lipogenesis.
Meaning making fat.
Exactly. It starts pulling energy out of the blood and converting it into fat droplets right there in the liver tissue. This is the core pathological driver of fatty liver disease.
And it gets even worse when that peripheral serotonin reaches our actual fat cells.
It's always worse, yeah.
Because when it hits the adipose tissue, it actively stops our brown fat from burning energy. It completely shuts down the furnace. And at the exact same time, it tells our white fat cells to expand their storage lockers and hoard more fat.
It's a double whammy.
Wait, let me just pause here, because if I'm understanding this right, a happy gut, flooded with serotonin by these specific bacteria, is actually tricking the body into hoarding fat like a bear prepping for a harsh winter.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
But why on earth would evolution design a system where our own feel-good chemical makes our metabolism so incredibly sluggish? I mean, that just seems like a massive, counterproductive biological design flaw.
I know, it absolutely feels like a design flaw today, especially when you're trying to fit into your genes. But think about the survival advantage there. For millions of years, it was an incredibly brilliant, elegant survival strategy.
Really? How so?
Well, historically, food was scarce. And tryptophan, the building block we talked about earlier, is found in nutrient-dense, high-calorie foods.
Right, the turkey, eggs, dairy.
Exactly. For early humans, getting a massive influx of tryptophan-rich food was a really rare event. So when that happened, your gut bacteria would rapidly ramp up serotonin production.
Okay.
That huge spike in peripheral serotonin was a loud, clear, systemic alarm bell for your body saying, we have abundant energy right now. Do not burn it. Shut down the furnace, expand the storage lockers, and hoard every single drop of it as fat, because a brutal famine is probably coming tomorrow.
Oh, wow. So high gut serotonin was the ultimate biological signal that times are good. So pack on the winter coat to survive the lean times.
Precisely. It kept our ancestors alive.
That makes so much sense.
The core issue is just our modern environment. We are no longer facing intermittent famine. You, listening right now, likely have constant access to high-calorie, nutrient-dense foods.
Yeah, there's a drive-thru on every corner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So because of our modern diets, our gut serotonin is constantly, chronically elevated. It is perpetually signaling our liver and our white fat cells to hoard energy. What was once a brilliant evolutionary advantage now just leads directly to metabolic dysfunction, severe insulin resistance, and, stubborn weight gain.
Man, we are essentially stuck in a biological software loop designed for the Paleolithic era. The factory supervisors in our gut are hoarding supplies for a winter that never actually comes.
That is the perfect way to put it.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? I mean, if our gut bugs are manipulating our serotonin to trap us in this metabolic gridlock, how do we break the loop?
Well, that's the exciting part.
Yeah, let's transition away from the problem and look at our own pantries. How do we actually hack this gut serotonin axis today using the exact data from this life metabolism review?
The incredible beauty of understanding this cellular mechanism is that we can reverse engineer it. We don't need complex experimental pharmaceuticals to start making a difference here,
Which is a relief.
right? The review shows we can use targeted, low-friction nutritional habits to change the microbial population, and that in turn completely reprograms the serotonin signaling.
Okay, so let's get practical. The review spends a lot of time on adipose tissue, our fat cells, and how inflamed they get when they're just stuffed full of energy.
Yes, the inflammation is a huge piece of this.
Right, and it highlights a very specific intervention, BGOS. Now, BGOS sounds like a synthetic motor oil. What actually is it?
It does sound like that, doesn't it? BGOS stands for galactoligosaccharides.
Say that 3 times fast.
I won't even try. But put simply, it's a highly specific type of prebiotic fiber. Now, you can find basic galactoligosaccharides in trace amounts in food like lentils, chickpeas, or certain dairy products. But in the context of this data, we are talking about a targeted, concentrated BGOS supplement.
Okay. And what happens when we introduce this specific fiber into the gut factory?
It acts as an incredibly selective fertilizer. The data shows that taking BGOS selectively feeds and upregulates bifidobacterium species in the gut.
Now, hold on. You mentioned earlier that bifidobacterium is one of the strains that actually increases the TPH1 assembly line and makes more serotonin.
I did.
Wouldn't fertilizing them make the hoarding problem worse?
You would definitely think so, and that is the nuanced brilliance of the microbiome. While BGOS does increase the population of bifidobacterium, the overall downstream effect alters the local immune response within the white fat tissue itself.
Okay, how so?
Well, adipose tissue isn't just a dead storage locker. It's an active endocrine organ with its own immune cells. The byproduct of the BGOS fermentation deeply soothes those immune cells. It significantly reduces inflammation in the fat cells and massively improves insulin sensitivity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's effectively overriding the metabolic gridlock even if peripheral serotonin is present.
So if you're looking at your morning routine wondering where to start, the action here is highly specific. Consider experimenting with a targeted BGOS prebiotic supplement.
Yes.
You are essentially providing the exact fertilizer needed to optimize the immune response inside your fat cells. You're breaking the cycle of inflammation that stubbornly locks the fat in.
It's just a foundational step to optimize the gut-fat immune axis.
Okay, so prebiotics act like fertilizer for the good bugs. But what if we approach this from the other side? Like, can we actively starve out the specific bacteria that are causing this toxic serotonin pooling in the first place?
Yes, we absolutely can. And the review points to dietary fats as the primary lever for this, specifically focusing on a very precise molecular mechanism involving omega-3s.
And the text specifically calls out docosahexaenoic acid, or DHA. Now, we all know we're supposed to take fish oil or eat salmon for brain health, right?
Right, everyone says that.
My doctor tells me that, podcasts tell me that, but this review completely flips that on its head. The real magic of DHA might actually be happening in our intestines before it ever reaches the brain.
It is a total paradigm shift. The mechanism here is fascinating. When you integrate high levels of DHA into your digestive system, it fundamentally alters the lipid profile, the fatty environment of your gut lining.
Okay.
By changing that environment, you make it actively hostile to a specific family of gut bacteria called Lactospiraceae.
And Lactospiraceae are the bad actors driving the serotonin pooling.
Exactly. When you drop their abundance by introducing DHA, you directly lower circulating peripheral serotonin level.
That's incredible.
The review clearly demonstrates that this specific bacterial shift, driven purely by DHA, can actually reverse the severe insulin resistance that is normally induced by a terrible, high-fat, highly processed diet.
So the takeaway for you listening is straightforward, but it requires consistency. You need a daily, high-quality DHA supplement, or you need to deliberately structure your weekly diet to be rich in fatty fish, like wild-caught salmon, mackerel, or sardines.
Yes, absolutely.
You aren't just eating these things for calories or even for your brain. You are biologically reprogramming the fatty acid environment of your gut to starve out the bugs that want to make you hibernate.
You are communicating with your cellular metabolism through your microbiome, which actually brings us to the third major lever to pull.
Right.
And I have to say, this is perhaps the most crucial, high-stakes, and completely counterintuitive takeaway from the entire review, especially for anyone navigating mental health treatments.
Yeah, let's talk about the SSRI paradox. SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors,
Hmm.
drugs like fluoxetine, sertraline, citalopram. I mean, these are some of the most widely prescribed medications in the entire world for depression and anxiety.
They are everywhere. And we know how they work in the brain. Reuptake essentially means recycling.
Right.
Your brain releases serotonin into the synaptic gap to send a happy signal, and then it normally sucks it back up to recycle it.
Okay.
An SSRI blocks that recycling process, leaving more of the happy chemical active in the gap to boost your mood.
But we just spent the last 10 minutes establishing that you have a massive separate serotonin system operating in your gut, with receptors all over your liver and fat cells.
Yes.
If you take a pill orally, it doesn't just magically teleport straight to your brain.
No, it acts systemically. It affects the entire body. And the review brings up a vital medical warning regarding this peripheral metabolism. Let's go back to our factory metaphor. Your gut factory is constantly churning out serotonin. Normally, the body uses it and then recycles it. If you introduce an SSRI, you are closing the loading docks. You are preventing the normal clearance and recycling of serotonin everywhere, not just in the head.
So the serotonin factory keeps producing, but the recycling trucks are blocked.
Exactly.
Where does all that excess serotonin go?
It spills out and pools on the warehouse floor. And in this case, the warehouse floor is your liver and your adipose tissue.
Wow. Now, the review notes that for listeners taking SSRIs, you might actually experience a bit of weight loss in the very short term, right? Like the first few weeks or months.
Yes, and this creates a huge false sense of security.
Because it feels like it's working.
Right. But that initial weight loss is usually due to temporary gastrointestinal distress, slight nausea, and central appetite suppression as the brain adjusts to the medication. But the long-term data is where the clinical warning lights start flashing red.
Because long-term use means years of excess serotonin pooling in the peripheral tissues. And as we established earlier, serotonin pooling in the liver and fat is the ultimate, undeniable hibernation signal.
Yes. It forces the liver into chronic lipogenesis, literally manufacturing fat out of thin air, and it destroys glucose tolerance.
That's terrifying.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the incredibly tragic paradox here is that the very medication helping a patient find the energy and mood to live their life might be quietly, systematically dismantling their metabolic health in the background by trapping serotonin in their peripheral organs.
Wow.
The clinical data in the review shows that long-term SSRI use carries a significantly high risk of inducing weight gain and metabolic dysfunction.
So the action here is fundamentally about proactive awareness. First and foremost, if you are on these medications and they are helping your mental health, do not panic and absolutely do not stop taking them without consulting your doctor. That is critical.
Completely agreed, the medication is doing an important job centrally. But you just cannot ignore what it's doing peripherally.
Exactly. The protocol is to proactively pair your SSRI treatment with strict metabolic monitoring. Next time you see your doctor, don't just talk about your mood. Ask to get your fasting insulin and liver enzymes checked regularly. Look at the data.
Yes, be proactive.
And more importantly, if you know this pooling is happening, aggressively utilize the microbiome hacks we just discussed. Use the targeted BGOS prebiotics to soothe the fat cells. Use the daily DHA to alter the gut environment and suppress the lacnospiratia. You have to deliberately work to offset that peripheral serotonin pooling.
It is entirely about systemic balance. These low-friction habits, the targeted fibers, the specific omega-3s, the clinical monitoring, they aren't just generic wellness advice about good digestion.
Right.
They are powerful, targeted tools to actively reprogram your body's energy storage software at a cellular level, mitigating the invisible side effects of our modern environments and our modern medicines.
Well, we've spent this entire deep dive talking about how to optimize your system by soothing it. We've talked about calming adipose inflammation, starving out the panicked, fat-hoarding signals from your gut, and generally trying to remove as much metabolic stress from your cells as humanly possible.
Indeed we have. Because we have this pervasive assumption in modern health culture that the ultimate goal of biology is total peace. The complete absence of all stress.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if we have that completely dangerously backward? What if trying to completely eliminate stress is actually making your cells weaker, more fragile, and far more prone to disease?
Oh, absolutely.
What if to build ultimate metabolic resilience, you actually need to damage your body a little bit on purpose?
This raises an important question. I mean, can a microscopic dose of poison actually be the ultimate medicine?
That is the exact paradox we are tackling tomorrow. We are completely flipping the script and diving into what we call the zapping strategy. Tomorrow, we are unpacking the fascinating, almost unbelievable science of mitohormesis.
It's a wild topic.
It is. It's the biological phenomenon where tiny controlled amounts of stress and cellular damage actually trigger your mitochondria to build an impenetrable armor. You will not want to miss the protocols for harnessing this specific biological superpower, because sometimes the only way to fix that strict middle manager in your gut is to realize that the diagnostic muddy waters we started with aren't something to avoid, but something to dive right into.